Hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Planning for Your Microsoft Dynamics GP Year-End Payroll. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us. There are a couple of housekeeping items we would like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so we can unmute you, or you can submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We will be answering questions throughout the presentation, as well as following up after the presentation to answer any additional questions. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. We have Jeff Smith, who is a solutions architect here at Socius. So at this point, Jeff, I believe we're ready to transition the presentation over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lindsay. First of all, thanks everyone. I appreciate you taking the time. We're getting to that point of the year where we wanted to be able to get back together and go through this process for payroll year-end. We are going to be doing another presentation on Thursday that will be focused on everything else in Dynamics GP other than payroll. Payroll is such a big item that we decided it needed to be its own presentation. Before I get into this slide and moving forward with what we're going to talk about today, I did want to mention to you that everything that I'm covering today is available to you as a GP user on Customer Source. So if you have a log on onto Customer Source, you'll be able to search on GP Payroll Year-End Close checklist, and you should be able to find these checklists that we're going to talk about. I am also going to talk about some other topics, including the Affordable Care Act, and so obviously there are some changes that are going on there, and they may affect you. We want to make sure you're aware of it. So really there are two different ways that you can look at the year-end closing process in GP. Number one, are you going to be running your W-2s prior to running any 2017 pay runs, which is typically not going to be the case. It could be, but it's not typical. Or am I going to run my first 2017 pay run before I print my 2016 W-2s? So I'm going to go through step by step through those checklists. And again, these checklists will be available to you. And if you have any trouble finding them, my email address will be at the end of this slide deck, and you'll be able to reach out to me, and I'll make sure that you get it. So first of all, if you're going to be running your W-2s prior to any of your 2017 pay runs, this is going to be the steps that you want to follow. Number one is you'll want to complete all of your 2016 pay runs. And as you can imagine, as you probably already know, it's really important that we segregate 2016 pay from 2017 pay. So these steps, you'll notice, are subtle differences, but they're differences nonetheless. So complete all of your 2016 pay runs, and then when you're done with that, complete all of your month-end, period-end, and quarter-end procedures that you do on a regular basis throughout the year. Also, I'm going to talk about this a lot, but it's really important to be cautious. So I'm going to talk about making backups quite a few times as we go through this process. And all of this is detailed as we've mentioned in the checklists that are available from Microsoft. So after you've done all of your pay runs and you've done all of your month-end, period-end, and quarter-end processing, it's really important to make a backup of your 2016 company database. And we suggest that you label that backup your pre-year-end wage file. And for those of you that are new to payroll in GP, the year-end wage file will become very important, and I'll explain that to you as we go through this process. So once you've done that and you have a backup, that means that basically everything you've done through for the year of 2016 is complete other than the year-end closing itself. So the next step would be to install the U.S. year-end update. That year-end update is available today, and I'll talk about release dates on this here in just a few minutes, but understand, and I'll re-emphasize this in a couple minutes, that year-end updates are available for Dynamics GP 2013, 2015, and 2016. If any of you on the line are still on 2010, this year-end update is not available. Okay, so then once you've completed the installation of the year-end update, you're going to create your year-end wage file. So understand what the year-end update does is it prepares you to close 2016. So actually you can really think of the year-end update as a service pack. It not only affects your payroll, which is our topic today, but it could also have updates to payables. So if there's a change, for instance, to the 1099 form for the year, that change would be made available to you through this year-end update as well. Sometimes there'll be new module features that will be included in this year-end update as well. But certainly the big part of, if you're a payroll user, the big part of the year-end update is making sure that any forms and year-end preparation updates are available to you. So once you've done that, then create your year-end wage file. And think of the year-end wage file as a file where everything gets transferred for the year that you're ready to close. So in other words, in this example, we are going to be closing 2016. So the year-end wage file, when we run that process, will actually take everything from 2016 and move it from your current year data into the year-end wage file so that you'll be able to prepare your W-2s, etc. But it also clears out your current year data file so that you can begin preparing for the and actually processing into 2017. So that year-end wage file is going to be really important. One of the things I guess I want to say about this is that sometimes these checklists, the tasks that you have to do aren't as difficult as just making sure that you follow the procedure in the proper order. And so I'll kind of go through that as we go here. So once you've created the year-end wage file, basically then 2016 has been moved from one spot in the GP database to another so that you can begin your processing for 2017. Once you've done that process of creating that year-end wage file, the next step that we would recommend is then make a backup of your 2016 company databases again, but label this backup as your post-year-end wage file. So notice before we made a pre-year-end wage file, and if something were to go astray, we could always go back to that, and that would have all of our completed 2016 activity with the reports and the month-end processes completed, and then we could go through this process again. Once we've done the creation of the, we've installed the year-end update, we've created the year-end wage file, then basically we'll run another backup so that we are then in a good spot. We're all backed up and ready to go prior to verifying and then printing our W-2 forms, etc., and 1099-Rs as well. So after that backup, then we're going to go through a process where we actually validate or verify our W-2 and 1099-R statement information. And then if you've made changes, you're going to make another backup, okay? So this may seem tedious, but in the long run, it just provides you with a situation where you never have to go back to the beginning or never are left in a situation where you've lost data that would then prevent you from preparing your 1099-Rs and your W-2s appropriately for your employees. The next step is then printing the W-2 validation report, printing the W-2 statements, and then the W-3 transmittal. So what we've done so far is pretty simple. We've run through a number of steps, and with the assumption that we're going to run our W-2s prior to our first 2017 pay run. There are a few more steps in this checklist. So after we run our W-2s, then we would then go in and produce our 1099-R for the tax document used for report distribution for retirement accounts, annuities, pensions, etc., and then the 1096 transmittal form, which is a summary of each of the summary of all of the activity at the 1099-R level. If you are going to submit your W-2s electronically, then you can prepare and submit those as the following step, if it's required. Now, whether that's required or not is oftentimes going to depend on the state for which you, well, first of all, for the number of employees that you have. So at the federal level, that number is 250. But just keep that in mind. I'm going to talk about electronic filing for state and other levels beyond federal at some point here in the presentation, but this really is talking about federal W-2 forms. Understanding that GP and Microsoft with GP provides you with the ability to produce electronic forms for electronic format for your federal submission. However, it doesn't provide that for any of the other levels that you may have to submit. There are a few other steps that some are optional. So for instance, archive your HR information. So many of you may use payroll without HR, so this is not a required step, even if you are using HR. You do have the ability to archive HR information for inactive employees. So that really kind of gets that inactive employee information out of your system and means less clutter in your lookups and so forth. Then what you can do is set up your periods for 2017. So each year you have to prepare the following year, and it's a pretty quick process, but to set up that year so that you can continue on producing payroll, entering transactions through payables and general ledger, etc. You do also have the ability to delete HR information for inactive employees. And notice that archiving and deleting are two different things. They're both optional steps, but you have the ability to do those. And then close the fiscal periods for the payroll series. I did not include a screenshot of that window, so maybe at the end I'll show you where that window is. But it would then close each of the individual periods for 2016 and make sure that those are closed out and that you're ready to run into 2017. Now, the last step that we have here is then installing the 2017 payroll tax update. So there's two updates that are going to be available to you as you get to the end of the year. One of them is called the year-end update, and then the next one is going to be a payroll tax update. So the year-end update, just to summarize, is really preparing you for your year-end closing process, whether that be form updates or whatever it may be. And then the payroll tax update prepares you for the new year. So any tax changes that have occurred that will be put in place for the beginning of the new year will be installed as part of that process. So this is really the process that you want to go through. If you're running your statements prior to your first pay run of 2017. I'm going to go back through this, and I'm not going to go and elaborate quite as deeply because a lot of these steps are the same. But if you're going to, and this is more common, if you're going to run your first pay run for 2017 prior to running your 2016 W-2 and 1099-R statement, because those statements aren't required until the end of January. So this is a more common approach to the W-2 and 1099-R process. So just like before, you're going to complete all of the 2016 pay runs. You're going to complete all of the month-end, period-end, and quarter-end procedures, just like we talked about before. You're going to make a backup of your 2016 2016 company database, and again, label that backup pre-year-end wage file. The difference, though, is now we're going to install the US 2016 year-end update just like we did before, and we will create the year-end wage file. At this point, then we can make a backup of your 2016 company database. You can label it, and then you can go through this process in just a slightly different order. You're going to verify your W-2 and 1099-R information and make another backup if changes are made. You're going to archive the HR information like we talked about before, and again, that's optional. You're going to set up the fiscal periods, and remember that was toward the end of the checklist before. It's a little further up the process because you're going to be running 2017 pay runs prior to your W-2s. We're going to then clear all the HR information for inactive employees if we choose that. We'll close the fiscal periods for 2016. And then we're going to install the 2017 payroll tax update. Because now we haven't done our 1099-Rs or our W-2s, but we are ready to go ahead and run our 2017 payroll runs. And for that to be appropriate, we need to make sure the tax tables are updated for 2017. So the key here is timing. Before you run your first 2017 pay run, whichever option of these two that we've looked at, you need to make sure that your tax updates are loaded prior to that first run. And besides that, you need to make sure that your last pay runs and your year-end tax update, or your year-end updates are loaded prior to the tax update. So then you'll process your 2017 pay runs throughout January, and then at some point during the month of January, you'll print your W-2s, your 1099-Rs, and you do your electronic submission of your W-2s. All right? So there's subtle differences in these two checklists, but they are different and significantly different in regards to timing. So we wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with the differences, the subtle differences between them. So there are some important updates that you need to know. So the GP 2016 payroll year-end update that we've talked about was released on November the 30th or thereabouts. The 2013 and 2015 payroll year-end updates were released about mid-November. And so at this point, you can load those at any point because that's the update that then provides you with, that's the update that provides you with the ability to then do the year-end close. Now, the 2017 payroll tax update is going to be released sometime in mid-December, so we're getting really close to that. But you want to remember not to load that until you've closed out or you've run your last 2016 pay. And then lastly, I just want to remind you again, there are no payroll year-end or tax updates for GP 2010. All right, I'm kind of going to go back through this but show you how to get to these windows. So Lindsay, are there any questions so far?
We do have one. Can you install the year-end update before you have processed all payrolls, or must you wait until you are done?
No, you can actually load the year-end update at any point because really that's meant to affect the actual year-end process. It doesn't really affect your 2016 pay runs.
All right, that's all for now.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. All right. So what I tried to do here is give you some screenshots and the path for which you could get to these screens. So, you know, one of the really important parts of this process is actually building that year-end wage file. So to get to that, if you're using GP 2013, 2015, 2016, on the left-hand side of your window in GP, you would click on the HR and Payroll tab, which would then bring you onto your HR and Payroll screen. And then under routines, you pick year-end closing. And so it's a really simple screen, and that's why we go through these checklists. Is the actual process itself is pretty easy. It's all really about the timing of when you do this. So you need, again, to make sure that the 2016 pay runs are done. Now, don't pay attention to the fact that 2017 is in the year there, because I'm using demo data that is using 2017 as its current year. But ultimately, what's going to happen is you're going to go to this window, and you're going to click on Process, and it will then create that year-end wage file for you. So the actual year-end closing process is really the creation of a year-end wage file, and then your W-2 and 1099-R process is a result of that closing process. So from there, we also, under that routine area, have the ability to print a year-end wage report. Really, this is going to summarize everything that exists inside that year-end wage file so that you can take a look at it and make sure that it is all proper. Once we've done that, then there's going to be a step where you edit your W-2s, and this will all be included in our checklist. So editing the W-2s, this is, once you've built your year-end wage file, then you'll be able to go in for each employee and see the summary for their wages, their federal income tax, and everything there. And you do have the ability to edit that information if it's appropriate. What I tried to highlight down at the bottom is you'll notice that there's also a 1095-C button, and that really is related to the, obviously, the Affordable Care Act information. Okay, so you can edit your W-2, but you can also have a similar process in preparation for producing the 1095-C. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but in GP, the 1095-C can be printed, but it cannot be electronically filed. And so we'll talk about how, if you need to electronically file your 1095-Cs, how you can do that. This is the window. Once you've edited your W-2s and are ready to go, then this is the window where you can actually produce the forms. Couple things I highlighted here is you're certainly going to select the year for which you're going to do this, but you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner there's an area for printing, and you'll notice that there's a validation report. There is the W-2 forms alignment, which I think is rarely used anymore, but it really was meant to produce an alignment form if you had a dot matrix printer to make sure everything was printing the way it should. And then you'll notice that there is the W-2 forms themselves. And then lastly, the W-3 transmittal form. And then you'll notice that there's the 1095-C and the 1094-C transmittal. So this window is pretty multi-purpose in regards to producing the appropriate forms for you. And this is going to be done after you've done the editing process to make sure everything is proper. Now, we also then have the ability to do the same type of routine for 1099-Rs. So you can see that this is a window where you can make those edits. Very similar to what you were seeing, only more appropriate to the 1099-R. And then the ability to actually produce those. So in this case, you'll notice under the print area, we have a validation report. We have a 1099-R forms alignment, and then the actual 1099-R forms. Now, if you're going to a laser printer, you don't need the alignment form. And then lastly, the 1096, which is the summary page that goes along with your 1099-Rs. Now, when you're electronic filing, then this is the step you would do after you've done everything else. So then you can do the HR, go to HR and payroll, go to routines, and then there'll be the W-2 electronic filing process. And this then will allow you to file electronically with the federal government. And remember, emphasis on just the federal government. This is not meant for state or local government at all. It is simply for the federal government. And then the last step here is then the tax update, because now I've run through the entire process of producing my W-2s and my 1099-Rs and my 1095-Cs if appropriate, and all of that information is done, and I am now ready to do my tax updates. Now, you may be in a situation where this step actually may happen this tax update may be prior to the actual production of the W-2s and 1099-Rs, based upon whether you're going to print those before or after your first pay run, like we said in this checklist. Now, this actually, for those of you who haven't done this before, this actually is going to be off of your main menu in Dynamics GP. So you'll notice that there's in your top left-hand corner, there's going to be a Microsoft Dynamics GP button. You select that, then you select Maintenance, and then you select U.S. Payroll Tax Updates, and then the last option is Check for Tax Updates. You will then receive this tax update window to do automatic or manual. And I believe, and I maybe need to double check, but I'm pretty sure that you need to be the SA user to do this. So just keep that in mind when you're loading tax updates. And this would be any updates that are at any level that are appropriate. And remember, in GP, if you're on a current maintenance plan and you're on payroll, then you're actually going to receive tax updates at the federal and state level. You will not receive local tax updates. There are options for that, but they're not included in your Microsoft maintenance plan. Okay, Lindsay, I'll stop for a minute and see if there are any additional questions.
There are not as of this moment.
Okay. All right, so there are two major contributors, companies that work very closely with Microsoft on the Dynamics GP side that provide add-on modules that are can become very essential for your organization depending on your circumstances. One of those is Integrity Data, and you can see the web address for that. And we will provide this slide deck and make it available to all of you that have attended today. The second company is Greenshades. These two companies have some pretty essential products that can be very, very useful in working with GP Payroll and play a role, significant role, in regards to the product at year-end. So Greenshades has 4 modules that play a role. They have what's called the Payroll Inspector, which is really meant to do a couple things. It provides you with Affordable Care Act eligibility tracking. GP, if you mark an employee appropriately, then the system can produce a 1095 for that employee. However, it's not monitoring and tracking eligibility for your employees. It's simply you mark them as eligible or not, and it can then produce a form at the end of the year. And as best I can tell, there are no intentions for that to be added into GP in the near future. This tool can also be very useful in regards to updating local tax rates, and it provides you the ability to e-file the ACA 1095 if you're using payroll only. So remember I told you earlier that the payroll module in GP does not actually allow you to electronically file the 1095. There's also what's called the Greenshades Center for 1099, and this is actually doing the same thing as the Payroll Inspector, only it does it if you're using HR and you're tracking Affordable Care Act information inside of GP. So there are ways of actually setting up information in HR that designates the employee status and therefore allows you to produce the 1095. But no matter what, the electronic filing of those forms is not available in GP. There's also, Greenshades provides an online employee service portal, and really that's meant for employees to be able to go online and actually look at and print their W-2s from a portal. So that actually can be a very useful tool. And then Greenshades Center payroll tax service, that allows you to do state and local tax filing while using GP as your payroll. Because you may remember from our earlier conversations, GP does not allow you to do electronic filing out of the box for anything other than the federal level. So in regards to the Greenshades, so from an everyday perspective, the dynamic payroll inspector tracks eligibility and offer of coverage. And then there's also the benefit enrollment module that tracks eligibility and offer of coverage. So depending on your circumstances, one of those two modules would be what you use. In regards to the 1095C, data is uploaded from GP HR payroll inspector or benefits enrollment, and the 1095Cs are distributed from year-end forms module. And so then lastly, if you're e-filing, the data is uploaded from GP HR, the payroll inspector or benefits enrollment, and they're then sent to the federal government. And then lastly, the 1094, 1095C e-filed directly to IRS via the Tax Filing Center 1099's license. So basically, these are the different modules within the Greenshades solution, and we can hook you up with them or arrange presentations and discussions with them in this regard. You can see how this all ties together. Okay. From the integrity data perspective, this is just a different presentation of the same kind of things. Actually, integrity data does not do quite as much in regards to state and other local area tax filing, but in regards to the 1095C and the 1094C, they basically do allow you to print and email those. They do also have the ability to track eligibility and affordability testing, just like Greenshades does. This also can give you automatic updates and alerts, and also they provide ACA fluent support. So basically, integrity data and Greenshades are two really important companies to know about in regards to the Affordable Care Act, if nothing else. And then Greenshades also allows you to have some additional functionality in regards to an employee portal for accessing pay stubs and W-2s, etc., as well as doing electronic filing for you and your organization. All right, so let me take another break and see if there are any questions, because this is covering a lot of information in just a few slides. Anything, Lindsay?
Yes. Can you do an interim year-end wage file to remove the 1095s and remove it before the final year-end wage file?
No, because what happens there is that when you build the year-end wage file, it removes everything from the open year, all of the payroll transactions that have occurred during that year. So it's not like you could do it in July and move everything out. The only way you could really do something like that would be if you're setting it up in a separate company or something, but ultimately I don't think that's going to get you where you want to go.
And that's all I have right now.
Okay, great. All right, so we got some information from both from our ISV partners that we just talked about, Integrity Data and Greenshades, and we also got some information from Microsoft in regards to their information. So I'm going to talk about much of this, okay? So, and this is more just helping you prepare. So many changes were made. There was a 2016 mid-year update to ACA. Other changes were made in the 2016 year-end update, which we've talked about. And so in that regard, it's really important that you load that 2016 year-end update before you do your year-end wage file. If you're going to track ACA information in Dynamics GP, it's required to install the latest year-end update for your versions for the 2016 reporting year. So I think we're saying the same thing maybe more than once, but it is really important to get that year-end wage or that year-end update installed, and it is now available, as I said before. So if you're on 2013 or 15, it was released in November on the 15th. 2016 was released at the end of November. Couple other Affordable Care Act updates. For the 2016 year, substitute forms are acceptable. Plans, and this is more information coming directly from our GP contacts at Microsoft. So plan start month is not required again, so this year, so it will not be populated on the form. There are 12, all 12 month-end check boxes are not required for employees, so it will populate each individual amount for the employee, but on the dependent, the covered all 12-month box will be populated. And then line 15 description of form has changed, so it's going to be now labeled employee required contribution. So that's a change to the form, the 1095 form. Here are a few other things. Void box, flyers should not use the void box on the Form 1095C. Dynamics GP will not be supporting the 1095B and 1094 and 1095B for small business employers of less than 50 employees. However, Greenshades does support this form. So if that's something that applies to you, Greenshades is available to do that. Dynamics GP will not support the electronic filing for the 2016 year of the Affordable Care Act, but like I said earlier, both Greenshades and Integrity Data will allow you to track ACA in Dynamics GP and just do the electronic filing. So, and again, here are the links to those two solutions. And if you need our help in hooking up with them, we have a really good relationship with both of those organizations. In regards to the Affordable Care Act, is it over yet? Not even close. That on a day-to-day basis, there are things that must be monitored. Here are a few of the items, okay? So employers' coverage meeting ACA qualifying offer level on a month-to-month basis, that has to be tracked. That 95% of all full-time employees are being offered minimum essential coverage, and that percentage meets compliance, and I believe that percentage in 2015 was 70%. You need to track which employees are not being offered adequate coverage, and that's why the Integrity Data and the Greenshades solutions are so nice, because they actually monitor, whereas GP doesn't. What employees are supposed to be offered benefits due to full-time status, that's tracked, and then also tracked are how many employees are considered full-time under the ACA. So all of that is done using these tools, Integrity Data and Greenshades. There are some changes to the filing deadlines. The 1095C is now due on March the 2nd. That actually was moved back from January 31st. The 1094C deadline is now February 28th, and the 1094C e-file is due March the 31st. And if you need more information, you can also use this link that's on the slide to drill into that and get a little bit more data. Let me get everything on the screen here. So the transition release is done. I think basically, you know, the government was pretty flexible with small businesses before in regards to making this transition. But now all businesses, no matter what, with 50 or more FTEs, must now fully participate. And like I said before, 95% of full-time employees and their dependents must be offered coverage. And like I said, last year, that was only 70%. There has been a change in the safe harbor affordability track or calculation. So I don't know if you know, but there are 3 tests for affordability. There's W-2 wages, rate of pay, and also federal poverty line. These are all 3 different safe harbors. And but ultimately, the rate did increase. It was 9.56, and it's been moved up to 9.66. And then there's a variety of other lesser used transition relief, such as non-calendar year plans. This is just one change that's been made in regards to the 1095-C form. So the 1J and 1K, 1J being used to report the minimum essential coverage, providing minimum value offered to the employee, and this has to do with conditionally offered to spouse and dependents, etc. So you can take a look at that and dig in a little bit more as well. And this is just a little bit of information about that conditional offer of coverage. Also, penalties have been increased. So if there's a failure to file or furnish a correct 1094-C or 1095-C, it's been increased to $260 per return or pay e-statement, up to a maximum per ALE member of $3,193,000, and $530 per return or pay statement if there is an intentional failure to file a return. So you got to keep that in mind. So they're kind of tightening the grip and you know, forcing businesses to really follow the rules now. I do have a couple just quick tips. We've kind of gone over these a little bit anyway, but if you're processing your first 2017 payroll prior to January, but after building your year-end wage file, please make sure to change the system date to a January pay date. So you'll need to change your system date to January for that pay run. Follow these checklists precisely. Look at your situation, because we gave 2 options. Follow those checklists precisely. And then be cautious and make backups. It's really, really important to make sure that you do this precisely. Payroll is important. These forms are important. There's a lot riding on it. And so if you're a GP Payroll user, just make sure that you're following the rules, make your backups, and be very cautious as you go through the process. And that's really all I had to cover. So I am available to answer a few questions. If you don't have a question right now but would like to reach out to me later, feel free to do so. You can see my email address and how to reach me via phone. I will be glad to help or get other resources involved from associates to help you out as well. So, Lindsay, do we have any additional questions?
We do not have any additional questions, but if you still have them, you can still kind of pop them in and we can try and answer as many as we can. I would like to mention our final webinar of the year is Thursday on year-end closing, and then in the next week or 2 we'll have the schedule for next year up on our website where you can view all of our upcoming promotions and events, socius1.com. So we will stay on the line, and if there's no other questions, thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great day.